Hey everybody, this is Dr. Langdon again with another personal video. So if you are watching my channel for pediatric advice, there are plenty of videos coming up about that, I promise. But today's another indulgence, if you don't mind, with more details of my involvement in a childhood cult of the fundamentalist variety. I was inspired to do the original video. Please find it on my YouTube channel, Dr. Langdon, if you're watching this video on a different platform, because of shiny, happy people. And I wanted to let other people know about some of my personal details of my childhood. And so today's video is just to give you additional details and to answer some questions people have had. So question number one is, what is the value of women in this version of fundamentalism? And at least the one in which I was involved as a child, the value of women was despicable. So we were taught that our periods were a reminder of Eve's sin in the Garden of Eden, and that we all as females wore that curse of Eve, and that the monthly cycle was intentional to be that monthly reminder of our shame and our depravity, and just how truly filthy we were, particularly because we were girls or females. And then within the marriage, the wife was considered extremely submissive. The man was totally dominant over her. And in fact, it was encouraged if the wife was not demonstrating a proper spirit of submission, that the husband was encouraged to beat out of her any spirit of rebellion. And that, oh, this is how crazy it was. And that eventually his wife would come to respect him more once she had had a right spirit renewed within her. Blech. It's disgusting. And then obviously the gender roles were extremely traditional to the excess. So all the funnier to me when I look back on my childhood and the ridiculous notions that were trained into me, when you consider that I've been so blessed to have a husband who is humble and precious and a co-leader and always does what's in my best interest, and has even spent his entire life as a stay-at-home dad, which is unusual even in traditional cultures, even not within a fundamentalist community, of course. And he was just amazing and incredible. And I would love for the people of my childhood cult to know that I was able to be the primary breadwinner for our home, and that we've done just fine. And that was even without me receiving any beatings whatsoever to renew a right spirit within me. Just so totally disgusting. And then another question two that I had was, well, what sort of clues, looking back now, can you tell that your childhood church was a cult? Well, for one thing, the leadership, when the original founder passed away, the leadership passed to his son. Now, in what sort of organization or a legitimate university system or college system does the ownership, the authority, and the power go just from father to son? Wouldn't you need to have some sort of an election or a really good resume or an application, a job interview? I don't know. So that's a little bit of a clue right there. The major one was just that free speech was never a thing. It was not only discouraged to think for yourself, to question authority, it was punished, actively punished. We were not allowed to have outside influences. So not only could we agree that gambling was a sin, perhaps, we weren't allowed to play any cards. I mean, not even Uno. And boy, did it hurt me when I took statistics in college and had never even heard of poker or didn't know about kings and queens or what colors and hearts. And I still get confused about that. And I still have this block in my brain for math if it's a statistics question that involves cards. So we weren't allowed to watch any television show that mentioned witchcraft, like even completely benign programs like Bewitched, things like that. We weren't allowed to watch much television at all. I had never been to a movie theater. Just no outside influences. We could only interpret the Bible through his commentaries. I mentioned that before. And probably the biggest one is that he would cut off all contact with outside people that could serve as a support for the people that he lured into this ministry. And so, for example, you couldn't stay friends with old friends. You couldn't keep contact with your own family unless that family was also in the ministry. Then you couldn't speak with them. And I saw this played out in a huge and horrible way as an adult. I had one friend there as a child who was just my very, very best friend. And so I knew her whole family and her siblings and everything. And her father passed away. This has been a few years ago. And so I went to the visitation, the wake, just to give my condolences to the family and to the widow especially. And they hugged me and they were glad to see me because they were out of the ministry. They left after I did, but they were out of the ministry now. And but sadly, of all of her siblings, the only one who never escaped, who never made it out, was the one that had been my best friend in childhood. She was not allowed to attend her own father's funeral because her family had left the ministry, and it would be too great of a risk for her to be contaminated by the world and their worldliness. How pitiful is that? How sick and twisted is that? That he would cut off all contact with the outside world, even your very own biological family, because they were not a part of the ministry. Also, I think it's a big red flag that the founder would pick and choose who could marry whom and when they were allowed to have children. Now, ultimately, if you'll remember, that was my ticket out of that place, because my mom's best friend's daughter was chosen to marry the founder's son. She said no. Unheard of. Thank God for her rebelliousness, because that's when the eyes became opened of my mom's best friend, and then eventually my mom, and then eventually that all worked out for us to get out of that place. I've also known lots of friends who eventually got out who had severe mental health damage and severe PTSD, nightmares, horrible depression, and things from the horrible things that happened to them there. I mean, it is not a normal thing to have physical punishment for college students, paddlings with boards. That's not normal, guys. And so I'd love to talk to you. If you have additional questions, let me know of all the many reasons that I don't have time to include on this video for how it is quite certainly a cult that I was involved with as a child. But again, thanks for listening. And if you have additional questions, please let me know. Thanks.